Hi, it's Ruby G. Welcome to Truth and Neurons.
Hi, I'm Joff. Today we're going to talk about the IDAHO4 BODYCAM that's just been released, looking at it from a forensic psychology perspective.
The foundation of this entire case, I think, crumbles under the weight of digital evidence that the law enforcement possessed but apparently chose to ignore. Mobile phone data and social media activity definitively prove Dylan was awake and actively using her devices throughout the night, completely contradicting her sworn testimony about sleeping after the alleged 4 a.m. incident.
Yeah, that's not just a minor memory lapse or trauma-induced confusion. It's, hate to say it, it's calculated deception about fundamental timeline facts that can be objectively verified through digital forensics. Dylan was consciously awake, active, and making deliberate choices for over 8 hours while claiming unconsciousness. The critical question becomes, if she wasn't sleeping, what was she actually doing during those proven hours of wakefulness while allegedly knowing her roommates might be in mortal danger?
Who would fabricate such a detailed false timeline while maintaining innocence suggests either severe psychological pathology or conscious involvement in events requiring cover-up. Normal individuals don't create elaborate false sleeping narratives when digital evidence can easily expose the deception.
Sure, and let's look at the theory of staging a crime scene. I mean, the physical evidence supports an 8-hour cleanup window. If we examine the body cam footage with knowledge of Dylan's proven 8-hour wakefulness, it reveals a startling absence of physical evidence supporting the narrative. Despite claims of a masked intruder moving through common areas, victims running between floors, screaming, violent confrontations, these stairways appear... They don't show what she's saying. There's no blood evidence in areas where Dylan alleges significant activity occurred.
I agree that the stairways are like pristine. They're so clean.
I wouldn't say pristine. They look like there's been a party.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, I'll let you have that. Yeah, and I think the sterile appearance of common areas, contrasted with what presumably occurred in private bedrooms, suggests systemic cleaning and staging. If Dylan was awake and active for 8 hours rather than sleeping as claimed, this time frame provides ample opportunity for comprehensive crime scene manipulation. The activities during this window could have included removing blood evidence from common areas, cleaning surfaces of fingerprints and DNA, disposing of physical evidence, staging the scene to match the predetermined narrative, and coordinating with Bethany on story details.
And if we look at what we could call a neighbour discovery method, it's particularly sinister under this theory. Rather than checking on roommates or calling 911 directly, Dylan and Bethany use Hunter and Emily as unwitting intermediaries to discover a scene they already found and potentially altered.
That is very sneaky, really.
Well, it creates psychological and legal distance from the discovery, and it maintains the appearance of appropriate concern for their housemates.
I definitely think it's a distancing behaviour.
When Dylan had called, I didn't think it was urgent. When we got there, Dylan and Bethany had exited the house. They frightened, just kind of like just hands on their mouth, like, I don't know what's going on type thing.
I set foot in the house and immediately Hunter was like, get out, somebody call 911.
Johnson was the first to realize they were in a crime scene. You can hear him on the 911 call, ushering everyone outside.
The DoorDash, the actual food there, it looks like somebody's eaten that DoorDash, and we've never heard whether...
It's exhausting work being a serial killer, right? You might need some snacks.
Maybe, perhaps. I'm not sure what to say about that. But I think that there's a lot of action around that food. Maybe there's a fight over the food, over the DoorDash.
Someone ate the other person's chips, or
Yeah,
who
yeah.
knows? Who
Okay.
knows? I mean,
But moving on, if we look at the psychological impossibility of Dylan's identification, like Dylan's description of the intruder represents damaging evidence against the prosecution's entire theory. I think that her spontaneous characterization of the perpetrator as not insanely tall and maybe my height and an inch or two higher or lower fundamentally contradicts established forensic psychology principles regarding threat perception under extreme stress.
well, sure. I mean, when we look at threat perception under extreme stress, every peer-reviewed study on witness identification confirms threatening figures appear larger under extreme stress due to that evolutionary survival mechanism and neurological fear responses. So Dylan, at 5'10", provides an unprompted height assessment, placing the intruder between 5'8" and 6 foot with significant uncertainty. And then the investigating officer contaminates the critical testimony by suggesting so about 6 foot, leading Dylan to agree.
So basically, leading the witness.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
I mean, it could be naivety or not intentional, but you would think that as someone who is conducting an initial investigation at a crime scene, especially a quadruple homicide, you want detail. You want to know exactly. So, put a marker on the wall and say how high were they. Just giving a vague idea of they were 9.5 foot tall and had green horns growing out the top of their head. Who knows? Like they could be. There's still that potential of shock. You want to have accuracy.
Facts,
yeah.
fact schmacks.
Facts are meaningless. You can use facts to prove anything that's even remotely true. Facts, schmacks.
All right, so let's have a look at Dylan's original assessment. If we account for typical stress-induced size amplification of 2 to 4 inches, which would suggest that the actual perpetrator was likely between 5'6" and 5'8", and definitely no taller than Dylan herself.
The person was a slim, skinny, lean build, and the person was taller than she is around 5'8". Around 5'8".
So how does someone in the 5'6" to 5'8" range overpower a 6'3" athletic male victim?
Good question. I mean, the perpetrator or perpetrators demonstrate overwhelming, and that might be one reason, perpetrators plural. But if it's a sole perpetrator, they demonstrate overwhelming physical dominance by killing 4 healthy young adults efficiently and quietly. I mean,
They would have to have combat experience.
something. Dylan's brain should have perceived such an individual as, should have perceived the individual as massive and imposing, not someone should qualify as not insanely tall. Her description actually excludes any suspect physically capable of committing the crime.
It sounds like, to me, it sounds like a minimizing language. Like she's actually minimizing the threat of the perpetrator, which is very, very odd.
It is odd, definitely.
Definitely
odd.
deserves more
And so
examination.
what are your thoughts on her? She seemed quite obsessed with her housemate, Kaylee.
That's very interesting. Dylan's testimony reveals an obsessive focus on Kaylee that suggests knowledge far beyond what she claims to have witnessed.
Heard her scream, and she ran downstairs because she saw someone. That's what I'm pretty sure she said. Someone's here, and she screamed and just ran downstairs. And I called for her name, but I jumped up and locked my door because I was so scared. And then I heard someone in the bathroom, and I heard her crying, and I heard some guy say that you're going to be okay, I'm going to help you. And I kept calling her name, but she wasn't answering. And then I opened the door for a second, and I saw this guy, and he was not insanely tall, but he was wearing all black and like this mask, which is covering his forehead and his mouth. And I locked the door, and I called, and I didn't know what to do.
This was at 4
a.m., yes.
Okay.
She repeatedly describes hearing Kaylee significantly screaming, calls out Kaylee's name multiple times, details Kaylee crying in the bathroom, and makes targeted phone calls to Kaylee at 4:31 a.m.
We'll have to have a quick look at the video, but wasn't there talk of hearing Kaylee carrying the dog up the stairs. Mm-hmm. So how do you hear someone carrying a dog up the stairs? Is the dog making noise? There's no description of that.
All I heard was I heard her go upstairs. Like, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep now because she's going upstairs.
And you heard who go upstairs?
Kaylee and the dog Murphy.
And upstairs to the very top?
Yeah, that's where her room is.
But really her laser focus on just one roommate's distress rather than all of the roommates, combined with her ability to recall specific conversations between intruder and victims. It indicates access to information that contradicts her claimed limited witnessing. So the psychological profile of someone who maintains detailed knowledge about specific victims' suffering while claiming ignorance about their ultimate fate, it suggests really sophisticated compartmentalization of information.
That's really interesting, because also, like, when we look at the 911 call, the focus was on Zana being passed out and drunk. It wasn't about Kaylee. 8 hours is a long time to sit with victims in a house and not know this information. They're a few feet away. They don't have to walk for miles to find these people.
Yeah.
I also think that most revealing is her claim to not know that the people were dead, despite allegedly witnessing a masked intruder. But hearing screams, crying, threatening voices, and observing behaviour she interpreted as a violent crime. Normal psychological processing would connect the observations to understanding that serious harm had occurred.
Yes, but you're making an assumption when you're saying normal psychological processing. There's so much more going on, and
You're doing very well.
Do you know if the other two girls are upstairs or not?
Right now, what we got to do is we got to process this whole thing.
That makes sense.
I don't know what I'd be permitted to tell you
That's fine.
right
That's
now. Okay.
fine. I understand.
Okay.
let's look at the contamination of witnesses and the coordination of the story between those out in front of the house. In this body cam footage, it reveals fundamental violations of basic investigative protocol that really compromise the integrity of any subsequent testimony. After Dylan provides her detailed account about the masked intruder, the timeline, the physical description, she and Bethany are allowed to remain together with ample opportunity for story coordination.
Yeah, that was very trusting. Way too trusting. So, yeah, generally, I mean, what would normally happen is standard witness separation protocol would demand immediate isolation to prevent collaborative narrative construction.
In the scene, as soon as we know for sure, we can tell you guys what's going on, we absolutely will. I know it sucks to be in the dark with this, but... Okay. And what's your relationship again? Yeah, man. As soon as I know we're able to fill you in on what's going on, we'll let you know. Okay. Like I said, you're welcome to get out at any point. If you want to hang out in here, you can because it's warm. If not, you want to hang out with them, you're gonna hang out outside too. Okay. Tell you what, I'll just crack the door. I'll try to not lock it on you, so it's ready to go. Water we can start. Yeah, we can see if somebody can bring some of that stuff by. Okay.
They left the door partly open, so he could have
Just to see if he'll run.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's a test. You didn't run, mate, so you're safe.
You're fine. You're free to go.
Yeah. So we also need to think about law enforcement, how they permitted unlimited communication between these two key witnesses.
Yeah.
They were very close.
Yeah. So
for a long time.
It allows them to compare and align their stories.
It does. This contamination window allowed Dylan and Bethany to compare and align their stories, like you just said. Okay, so it would have also allowed them to identify inconsistencies, requiring resolution, coordinate details about...
Yeah, the timeline that they put together.
Yep, and also finalise the neighbour discovery.
Yeah, so that strategy of getting someone else to discover the scene I mean, any statements given by either witness after unsupervised contact like that becomes legally worthless as independent testimony. Their accounts transform from potentially separate witness perspectives into a collaborative, collusive narrative construction. The failure to separate the witnesses represents such basic investigative malpractice. It suggests either gross incompetence or deliberate facilitation of story coordination.
Not insanely tall, but he was wearing all black and like this mask that was just covering his forehead and his mouth. And I locked the door and I called and I didn't know what to do.
This was at 4
a.m. Yes.
Okay.
And so then I just ran down to
You left here?
I left my room down to she's that one with the white blinds at the very bottom. I ran down there and we talked and we just locked the door. We didn't think anything of it. We're like, nothing happens in Moscow. Nothing happens in Moscow. And then we woke up and it was weird because none of our roommates were up. And we called all of them. They were not waking up. And so me and like, this is weird. So I called and to come over and then that's when all this happened. And I still have to go home soon.
We can't hold you forever. Okay. So we'll cross that bridge when it gets there, and the detectives will work with you guys to get a hold of you however we best can. Okay. Hey boss, I got to get going to start some paperwork back at the station. So I imagine you don't want to go with me. I'll have you stay here, and like I said, we'll let you know as soon as we can fill you in. Okay.
That's all for today's episode of Truth and Neurons. If you found this analysis helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on the ethics of media commentary in high-profile cases. Until next time, keep thinking critically and questioning everything. Cheers, bye.